Hey everyone, and welcome to Prune Belly Insiders. I'm your host, Michael Adams. Everybody, please welcome Cathy Conley.
Hi, everyone.
So, why don't we get started with your story?
Sure. I found out that I was pregnant with twins probably in November. And in January, they were kind of doing another ultrasound and realized that there might be something. They weren't sure. And they had told me that, sometimes when you have twins, there could be a pocket of fluid in between the twins. I had boy girl twins, so they were each in their own sack. So sometimes between the sack, there could be some fluid.
Okay.
So they sent me for, fast forwarding a couple of high level ultrasounds and found out that um, there was actually not a fluid buildup, but it was actually the baby, that they could see that whatever was happening, there was fluid building up in the bladder and pushing out on the belly, and that was the bump or the sac of fluid that they were seeing. And basically what was happening is, in the cycle, people don't realize it, but amniotic fluid, we all know that there's amniotic fluid around the baby, but there's a cycle that happens. The baby breathes in the amniotic fluid, pees it out, and it's a cycle, continuous cycle. In the early stages of your pregnancy, mom usually provides that, but then there's a point in time where the baby starts making their own amniotic fluid. And so they didn't know where there was a blockage, but they knew that there was something happening. And that was probably about 15 weeks into the pregnancy. And, you know, 15 weeks is pretty early. And, the doctors were like, well, there's nothing that can be done. They called it selective reduction. They didn't think that my son would be compatible with life, and I needed to reconsider, what the possibilities were for his twin.
And how do
Um,
you feel hearing this and going through this?
yeah, well, I mean, I will say it was definitely, it's one of those moments you don't forget, and it's overwhelming. I think I was fortunate. I was already a mom, and I I worked in the healthcare facility, so I kind of understood how healthcare works, and I wouldn't take no for an answer. And I knew that whatever happened, my husband and I needed to make sure that we explored every avenue possible. And I spoke to a couple of doctors. We went up to Boston. We live in Rhode Island, so we went up to Boston and spoke to some specialists there. There was a particular doctor that had done some in utero interventions with a pigtail catheter. But the thing is that I was fortunate that I understood how to read a research report and understand that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something, and knowing what the right, the perfect scenario. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a balance. It's a balancing act. But I mean, my goal was to just get to the end of this pregnancy, and whatever happened happened.
All right. And how did you make your mind up about discontinuing the pregnancy or moving forward?
It wasn't an option for me. I mean, it might be an option for somebody else. And that's up to them, and some people make those decisions. I pass no judgment whatsoever. um I think we all know what we can handle, what we can't. It it wasn't an option. It was not, I was not going to make that decision. I was going to, whatever happened, happened. And that's, that's what I would deal with.
All right.
Failure is never an option.
I know the one quote my teacher always quoted me was good, better, best, will never rest till your good is better and your better is best.
Hmm, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it really came down to, will I be able to live with myself the next 60 years or however long I am? Will I be able to say I did everything possible? I explored every avenue. But that's the type of person that I am. My goal was to, and I think as a mom, you want to protect your children, you want to take care of them. So, as a mom, I wanted to find a solution to this. And what solution could I find? And what could I do to make things better for both my babies? I mean, I was pregnant with twins, so, it
Yeah.
was, challenging time for sure. Very stressful. I won't lie.
All right. So, why don't you continue your story?
So doctors really, there was there was very few people that were positive. I will say that the doctors that were involved with my care in the beginning while I was pregnant with my son Ethan and Emily, um, they really were in it for the long haul. And I remember one doctor, he was a surgeon, because I had asked at one point to speak to a pediatric urologist. I wanted to learn more about this, and he was able to really give me an explanation and explain things. And never once did he tell me um that nothing could be done, or like, it was really the the obstetricians that were saying that, well, this isn't going to be a viable pregnancy, and what's the quality of life going to be. But then when I talked to the pediatric urologist, never once did he say, we never talked about that. We talked about what can be done. We just got to get them born. What can we do after that? And I also met with a pediatric surgeon beforehand. And I think at one point, and don't get me wrong, this was not smooth sailing by any stretch. It was, it was a roller coaster ride without a seatbelt.
Yeah.
And the urologist wanted me to meet this pediatric surgeon. At this point, I was kind of like fed up and was like, I'm not, listen, there's not much more I can hear. And he's like, no, 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 I really think you should talk to him. And when I met him, he was very inspiring, and he gave me some really good advice. And he told me that sometimes not making a decision is making a decision, and that, to just follow what I felt I needed to do. So I had, I, I did have some very, very good support in the medical world to help guide me and give me good advice. Um, and I think that was helpful. And, I often talk to the pediatric urologist, who his name is Anthony Caldamone. And, I said to him, did you ever think I was, I was out there, or I was not of sound mind? And, what made you stay as part of this? And he said to me, he says, I was following your lead the whole time. What were you comfortable with doing? And it was a good partnership. And I think it's a really good example of how that patient doctor relationship doesn't have to be strained, that it can be successful, and that it can be a partnership.
That's funny because that's the same way my mom ended up deciding to keep me, was because all the doctors she met with the top children's hospitals around my area. One was one of the best in the country, and all of them were telling her to abort me, but one said, "Look, all we can do is hope and pray, and I'll do everything I can to keep your baby safe." And that's what got her to continue on.
Yeah, it is, it's a gamble. And I think, I've done a few talks with so the pediatric surgeon was Francois Lutz. I've done a couple of talks with both Anthony Caldemone and Francois Lutz, and one of the talks with Anthony Caldemone is that with technology and the advancement of things, that kidney diseases and kidney disorders were becoming the most identified condition while a woman was still pregnant. So it was, they were seeing more of that. And it was easy to see early on, and then try to come up with a plan. I think it comes down to, and this is not any judgment, but I think it comes down to the type of person that you are. If you're resilient and you're the type that can dig in and manage this, it's not easy by any stretch, but I think the rewards are worth it. And, you know, I I mean, I had obstetricians telling me that, my son wasn't going to have a good quality of life, and that he, probably wasn't going to be born alive. If he was born alive, maybe he would take his first breath. And now he's 21 years old in college. So, um, it's, I don't know why I was so fortunate that things worked out well for me, but um, very fortunate in that sense.
Yeah. So, how many surgeries has Ethan had?
Oh, he's had over 50 surgeries. I mean, not only does he have prune belly syndrome, but he also has hydrocephalus, which is, he has a buildup of a cerebral spinal fluid in his brain, and it's blocked somewhere. So he has that, which really is, I know it sounds crazy, but it's the easiest thing to fix because it's a surgical procedure. You put a shunt in, it drains it, problem solved. I think with the prune belly syndrome, there is so many other pieces that it affects, right? When you don't
Yeah.
have that good stomach muscles, they're overstretched, right? Hence the name
Yeah.
prune. It creates a lot of other issues. You know, like Ethan's had what they would call idiopathic scoliosis. So it's not a true scoliosis, but because he doesn't have that support in his core, he he had that curvature and has had to have many surgeries to help correct that. Um, he has had a kidney transplant, which you know, yes, that's a very big surgery. And we were fortunate that, his dad was a match and was willing to do it. Um, but that's probably also not the most difficult surgery he's had. I think the most difficult surgeries he's had is, the first one was when they had to place initial rods along his spine to help
Yeah.
support him. And then I think it was last summer, he had to have his pelvis fused. I think those two surgeries have definitely been far more, you know, involved than, like a shunt revision. Yes, they're drilling a hole in the side of their head, but the fix is quick and it's fairly easy. The problem is that when you're a mom of a child like Ethan and he's had so many surgeries, you really become desensitized to this,
Yeah.
so if somebody tells me that for instance, my husband, Ethan's dad, had his knee replaced, and we're like, yeah, big deal.
So, how was it watching Ethan go through all those surgeries, knowing you couldn't really do nothing to help
Um,
other than say yes or no to the surgeries, of course?
I mean, it's challenging. I think in the early years when I really had to make all the decisions, I I would do a lot of research. I'm also a person that's not afraid to make a decision. So um I know I made good decisions. I think it gets harder in when he was younger, there were so many things happening, and his health was, he was always teetering on really being sick and then not being sick. So you're really in the midst of parenting and managing that you really don't have time to get caught up in it. I think as he's gotten older and things have settled down, like once he had his kidney transplant, it really was a change. I mean, yes, he's treating, the kidney disease. For now, we have to manage it with, immunosuppressants, but it's a better quality of life, and things
Yeah,
settle down, and it doesn't just affect him, it affects the whole family. He has two sisters. It affects everybody. When he's in the hospital and I'm not there with his sisters, it affects them too. It's not just happening to Ethan. But I think when you're a mom and you're in the middle of that, you really don't have time to think and worry or be feeling sorry for yourself. When now that he's older and he's making a lot of the decisions, and you see, for instance, when I see that he's in pain or that he's struggling, that's hard. That's definitely hard. But would I change any of my decisions? Absolutely not.
all right. And you said you have more kids than Ethan, right?
So he has an older sister, and then he also has a twin sister.
All right, and what are their relationships like? Are they good relationships, bad relationships, somewhere in the middle?
No, I think they're good relationships. I mean, I think his older sister, she's 2 years older than Ethan. I think she chose her career path to be a special ed teacher because of her brother. Um, they check in with each other. She lives in Boston. He's up in school in Boston. Um, no, it's they've seen him. They've been there the whole time. They've had their
Yeah.
worries too. I think there's nothing scarier when, as a kid and you don't understand what's going on, you see your brother being sick and you think, oh my God, is my brother going to die? I mean, his twin sister, has definitely worried about that. And, I think as they've gotten older and they also see how cruel and how unjust the world can be to people that have different levels of abilities, you know, it makes them angry. But no, I mean, I think we're the typical family. Yeah, everybody, yeah, we love each other, but everybody has their moments. We're very fortunate in that sense. We've been through a lot, so we're very fortunate that we all still like each other.
Yeah, that's good. So, what would you say is the difference between raising a kid with disabilities like Ethan versus raising, I don't want to say regular because there's no such thing as regular, but a healthy
Typical.
child? Yeah, typical child.
Oh boy. I mean, I guess you can look at it many different ways. Um, well, first of all, one of the approaches that my husband and I took is that we've never treated Ethan any differently. We've felt he could do anything he wanted to do if he tried. Um, you know, we didn't raise him as a disabled child. And there's you know, it, it's he was held to the same standards his sisters were. When they're younger, yeah, that's you can everybody gets punished. You did the same wrong thing as your sister did, yeah, you don't get a pass. And yeah, if you want to do that, yeah, you might have to work a little harder, but that's okay. um I think now now that he's older and you see the struggles that he has, it's you know it's it's hard to see, but he's I often joke and say, I say to my friends and my coworkers, I'll say, my son has had over 50 surgeries. He's still easier than his two sisters. I mean, so
Yeah,
it just depends. I mean, Ethan's been around a lot of a lot of doctors. He's interacted with adults. So he also has this amazing emotional intelligence level that is so high, and he's so aware. Um so
which might
he's
be why he's studying psychology.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's a very kind person, and he really he thinks, of how things affect people and how they feel, and we need more people like that.
Yeah.
Um, you know?
Yep, I totally agree. So, what were some of your concerns with some of his surgeries?
Um, I mean, I'm not a worrier. I knew that he was in good hands. I did a lot of research, but I also do research for work, so it's kind of where my comfort zone is. Um, I'm I don't know. I'm not the typical parent because I'm not afraid to push the doctors back a little bit, and that's
Yeah.
it's I can't say, maybe a couple of shunt revisions where I was like a little worried, but then I was like, I would turn around and say, okay, this is the problem. How are we going to fix it? So,
All
but
right.
that's the type of person that I am. What do we need to do? What's the next step?
Yep. So, trying to think. So, you've probably already answered this, so I apologize if I'm re-asking. But if you had a crystal ball and could see everything Ethan was gonna go through, would you still have made the same decision to continue the abortion?
Say what
Sorry. My bad. I meant continue the pregnancy.
absolutely. Absolutely. I would not change my decision. No way.
And what's some advice you can give to parents who are debating right now?
Um, I think just I mean, there's I think there is I'm not gonna lie and say that there's not this level of grief that you have for a child that you thought you were gonna have, but it's a privilege to be able to raise a child that has been through this and who is a kind and thoughtful individual. Um, yeah, it will be hard, but it's worth it. And I mean, this is a decision my husband and I made. He was loved before he was born. So, just like his sisters were. But that's me. It didn't bother me in the least if I would have a child that had, Down syndrome or something. That
Yeah.
didn't bother me. I think it's a privilege. I think it takes a certain type of person to be able to handle it. And I guess in the end of it, we all are supposed to learn something. So,
Well, it's funny you say that because I'm actually unable to have kids at the moment.
mm,
So when I get older, I do want to adopt, but I want to adopt more of the not mentally, why am I saying that? More of the ill children.
mhm.
That way they have a home and a loving family.
Sure, sure. No, it's yeah, society's not perfect. Everybody's got something. I have to wear glasses. Y you know, I mean, it it's so, why people get so hung up on, "Oh, you can't do this or you can't do that." You know, you just need to take the approach of what can you do and, okay, you live your life, you know?
What was the hardest decision you've had to make for Ethan growing up medical wise?
Um, I wouldn't say that there's never been a hard decision for me, and I know that sounds very cocky and overconfident, but, um, making those decisions of what he needed was not hard. The most humbling thing I ever had to do was when I had to sign the paperwork for him to start dialysis. Because then it was like that moment of, I remember they needed to find a black pen for me to sign. And that was, I think, one of those moments where, wow, this is really happening. But I don't regret, I'm never, that's not me. I'm comfortable in the healthcare setting, I'm comfortable in a crisis. So, um, never regret any decision at all.
Now you said you do research for work. What do
Mhm.
you what do you do for work? I mean, what do you mean by research for work?
So, I do clinical research, clinical trials. Maybe there's a
Uh,
new prescription or new pharmaceutical drug or something, or new cancer treatments. It just depends. It depends
oh,
on the type of research.
all right, that's interesting.
Yeah, a lot of like clinical trials type of stuff.
All right. Well, I think we're getting ready to end it here. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I think it's great that you guys have this platform and to share the information and create a little community. I think it's wonderful. I think that that's helpful, right? I think one of the things that I wanted when I was pregnant was I wanted to talk to another person that had gone through a pregnancy like mine. So it's helpful when you have people that have been through the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I just gotta say, the network is a blessing.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's just a blessing. All right. Well, I think we're about to end it then. I want to thank Kathy for coming on again, and I'll see everybody next week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and if you watched this video to the end, comment Prune Belly Awareness. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.